Okay, for the week 6, it's chapter 5, question 1 spreadsheet that's appears to be puzzling everybody. I'm going to run through this so that you can understand what's going on. First, let's look at cell E24. The kind of an important point of this, we're going to be looking at what we call, if we were in finance or management accounting, we go, this is a net present value problem, which is where the PV part comes from. Now in Excel, this formula is designed in such a way that all the math is done under the hood. All you have to know is the whole XYZ part here. So up here, well, you see the, the XYZ, X is your discount rate, Y is the number of years you're going to be calculating this for, and then the Z function is going to be whatever the number is that you want to bring back to a present value. So effectively, and please ignore this ridiculous spelling, I didn't do that. The number here, what we want to know is what this $500,000, or excuse me, in this case, the electricity cost per year for the Ergolite, the conventional, and then the maintenance cost per year for the two. We want to know over 20 years what this total cost is going to be. But to compare apples to apples, right, discount rate's the same, the economic life, the 20 years is the same, but the dollar amount is different. So we want to know over 20 years, if we bring this back to like today's dollars, what is that amount? Now, up front, when you look at this, obviously you see the Ergolite's worth $500,000, and the conventional's only $100,000. So your initial impression might be, well, obviously the conventional is much cheaper because I'm only spending $100,000. It's only 20% of what this one's going to cost. I mean, yeah, the maintenance costs, electricity costs are more, but that's a $400,000 savings. So I'm obviously going to be on the plus side. All right. Understand, this is how finance salesmen take you down the primrose path. You need to be able to figure out what this is in today's dollars. Now, the only real big trick here is this. All right, you see this, it says it uses the, and see in red, that minus sign? In a finance calculations, that minus sign is important. It tells the equation which way the money's going, into the system or out of the system. In this case, we're going to take a present value, a future value, and we're going to bring it back. This is the only big trick to this. Make sure that you have a negative sign in front of any present value calculation. Now, there's a whole lot of math behind this. You don't care. Excel will do the math. You just have to tell Excel what those three elements are that it needs to do to give you the present value. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this. It's like here in cell, what is this, B24. Now, we know to start an equation, we use the equal sign. It's just the way Excel works, and most spreadsheet apps, that tells us that it's actually an equation and do the math rather than this is something that I want you to put in there like it's a sentence. All right. Now, again, for the equation, needs to be a negative sign. You notice this is pretty small on here, so it's pretty easy to miss this. So if something goes wrong, go check to make sure the negative sign's there. Just trust me. All right. Then PV, telling in the formula that it's the present value in investment, and sometimes, depending on what Excel version you're using, or it could be, Google Sheets or whatever, but this is the equation. They all work the same way. So I see the definition returns the present value of an investment, the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. In this case, we want to know what 20 future payments, 20 years, at $20,000 a year is at a 4% discount rate. Okay? All right, so equals PV, and we start putting in the arguments. All right, so the X argument, as you see here, is the rate. The rate is 4%. Now, don't put this in as a number. The cool thing about doing this, if you set this up to actually to look at cells, it doesn't matter what you want to look at in the future, all you have to do is set it up, say the way that it's done here with these parameters, and you reference a cell rather than the actual number. That way, you can just change the numbers here. You know, if say your salesman gives you a bunch of what ifs, you know, oh, well, we could give you the discount rate at 5%, and you know, and change the purchase price to $450. You know, well, fine. We'll just plug in different numbers and we'll see how this works out. Makes it real simple. All right, so XYZ. The X is the rate. All right, the rate is 4%. The 4% is in cell B15. So let's put in B15. Put a little comma in there to separate it. Next thing is what the amount is that we wish to bring back to present value. In this case, it is, excuse me, boss gave me a cold, and that was not something that I was really planning on having to deal with here. So now we want to know what the economic life is. Well, all right. I'll just do this in order. The economic life is in cell 16, 20 years. All right, that's here. And then the number that we want to bring back to present value is in B18, the 20,000. So you put in B18, and then close the bracket. Now I've lost it. Equals minus PV. B15, B16, B18. Oops, wrong bracket. Right. So now what it's telling us that this amount of money at a 4% discount rate over 20 years is worth that much total in today's dollars. All right. So we know what today over 20 years, this is what that's going to, we now have something to compare with. Now, here when you look at maintenance, you know, it's the same equation except we want the cell that's going to get, you know, we want B19 to give us this number in today's dollars rather than this one. So the same thing. Highlight it, equals, negative sign, PV, open the parentheses. We'll do B15 for the discount rate. Then B16 for the economic life. And then we want B19 to tell us what this is. All right. Now, it's telling us in present dollars over 20 years at a discount rate of 4%. Today, in today's dollars, that amount, accounting for inflation is, which incidentally, that's what this is. That's the discount rate. You're zeroing out inflation. So they're saying that's what it's worth. Right now, we have most of what we need to do a comparison, but we want to know what the total amount to do this, what's our total cost, all right? We know the purchase price is $500,000. We know in today's dollars, electricity is going to cost us this over 20 years, this in maintenance over 20 years. So we're going to want to total this. Now, you see us use a lot, all through this, you'll see the subtotal function. Now here, always use the 9 switch. Just get used to doing that. The reason you use the 9 switch is because it will, in a column, if you're totaling a whole bunch of stuff, you could do this as a sum. But if you use this as a subtotal, and you have a whole column of items that you subtotal in different places, you can subtotal everything above down to the bottom and get a final total, and the 9 switch tells Excel to ignore anything that's subtotaled above it. If you use sum, it's going to grab everything in there, it's going to grab the subtotals. Effectively, it'll count everything twice. So I like using subtotal. The author's right. It's a good thing, good habit to get into. But as long as you can remember that the you know, you're only doing one column of numbers, sum is fine. All right, so we want a subtotal. Everything from cell B23 to cell B25. So you're covering the purchase price, electricity, and maintenance. So if you're tallying up the cost, what it's going to cost you to buy this device over 20 years under these conditions, that's what it's going to cost you total. Here's where things get interesting. Now we're going to look at the one that costs 20% of the Ergolite. We're going to do the same thing, except we're just going to kick the numbers over one cell, the C column. All right? So equals, minus PV. Start plugging in the same thing that we did over here. Start with a rate. The rate is cell C. Like in this case, I can just click on the cell. Oh, give it a rest here. C15. And then you want to know the economic life. And then, and since we're dealing with electricity here, click on the electricity one. Which is in C18. Oh, oops. Yeah. So you get a little cute clicking these. There we go. All right, so now you discovered that the, look at the electricity cost, you know, or your, what did I do here? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I've got split screens here, so that's why I'm having a little issue here. One screen keeps blanking on me. All right. Same thing with the maintenance equation. All right. We have the rate. Put a little comma in there to separate it. Now we get the Y value, which is the years, another comma. Then we want to know what the maintenance cost is, which is in cell C19. And that'll give us $135,903. All right. Same thing that we did here with the subtotal. Equals subtotal. This cell through this cell, which is C23 through C25. Oh, the right fact I didn't put the 9 switch in, sorry. There we go. And there we have the answer. So while the Ergolite system costs you $500,000, conventional's only $100,000, when you factor in the time value of money, bring it back to present value, to a net present value, so you're comparing apples to apples. Because remember, this is today's dollars. So you need these to be in today's dollars, but over 20 years. Which system's going to cost you less money? It's not the one that you at first might assume, just looking at the purchase price. Therefore, under the correct answer, the Ergolite system selected because it's less costly. It's over $100,000 less costly. But again, at the just an initial glance at this, you might assume that the Ergolite's more costly simply because there's a much larger initial cost. This is how you do a present value argument. So that should give you a fine idea how to do this in the future, and you'll see that all the self-checking this came up true. All right, now here's a point I will point out. I'm using Office 365 to do this, and I've noticed that depending on what kind of a spreadsheet you're working on this, sometimes these things get goofy, or if you have to change something. If you have an issue and you're still seeing something come up false, hit the F9 key, which will tell the spreadsheet to recalculate everything in the spreadsheet, and a lot of times that will fix a false. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about this in an email, and we'll move on from here.